I now request Brigadier Arun Sahgal to, sir, please uh, say your bit and how do you view what is happening, sir? Over to
Okay.
you.
A lot of what I have to say has already been talked about, but uh, I'll just highlight some very critical issues that have
Sir, could you
emerged
just
and
adjust your
some.
camera a little, sir, please?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Fine.
Okay. So some very critical issues have come up, but some aspects which were highlighted, I just like to extrapolate them on them a little more. First and foremost is what are the bones of contention? The first is the refusal to accept Pakistan's hegemony and recognize Durand line as the border. Everybody's talked about it. And the second point is that as far as Afghan government is concerned, is that TTP is the Pakistan's baby. If they call it the Pakistan Taliban, and look at it as an internal problem, and they have always constant dialogue to resolve this issue. So this is an important point. They do not they Because there is no border per se, that they move up and down the border is a secondary issue to them, but the main primary issue is that they say it is your problem, you solve it. Second thing is that the security situation has become worse. I'll try and give you some highlights. As of 7th December 2024, there were 460 terror attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in which 288 civilians were killed, 388 security forces were killed, and 577 militants died. In Balochistan, during the same periods, there were 230 attacks, in which 266 civilians died, and 278 security forces, and leading to a death of 166 terrorists. Now, you please compare this with what is happening in J&K. I'm bringing in this point to highlight is that when the Pakistani is talking about terrorism, etc., and world talks about terrorism and Kashmir, etc., look at the situation in Kashmir. During the same period, there were 60 terror attacks in Kashmir with 31 civilian deaths, 26 security forces deaths, and 164 terrorists killed. There was not a single collateral damage. In fact, in the case of the Pakistanis, most of the civilian deaths have been part of a collateral damage, which the Pakistani security forces refuses to acknowledge. So it will be wrong to highlight that the 2024 has proved to be the most deadliest year for the security forces as far as Pakistan is concerned. The second important issue is, like Dr. Kantas very rightly said, is that there is a growing linkages with the Baluch insurgents, and they have the same issues. They are fighting against uh, the 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 kind of terror which has been created by the Pakistani military and against the local people. So this whole issue is also linked to the internal situation in Pakistan, where these groups as well as the PTI cadres are coming together as part of a political discourse to deal with this whole situation. So the issue from the Pakistani perspective is that there is a worsening political situation in Pakistan, and with increased clashes with PTI, the Pakistan state is on the back foot. The another element that is impacting this whole issue of Afghanistan and Pakistan is the transit trade, where the both the constituencies which benefit from this trade are getting against them because of the number of protests which are being launched against, and number of customs issues which are coming up. The transit trade is getting delayed because of the various kind of restrictions being imposed by Pakistan. And the last issue, of course, is the fact is that the large number of Afghans have been brutally expelled from the country, and they were expelled during a winter season, led to a large number of deaths, and most of them were from the same Paktika, Kandahar area, which are the central points or the focus points of the Afghan Taliban leadership. See, TTP, of course, has gone on for strikes, etc. But the point which she was trying to make was very important. The Pakistan Special Representative Muhammad Sadiq and the Taliban Interior Foreign Minister were having a dialogue when the strike took place. The important issue is, like she was rightly trying to point out, is why did the Pakistani army, which is controls the both the foreign and security policies of Pakistan, decide on doing this, particularly at the point when the dialogue was going on? Were they disappointed with Sadiq's position, or they were not happy with the kind of discourse that was taking place? There are two theories to it. One theory is that Sirajuddin Haqqani had promised to the Pakistani handlers with whom he was in touch with ISI, through ISI and army, that he will deliver uh, some kind of a rapprochement between the TTP and and the the Pakistanis, and try and to ensure that the TTP does not continue with its activities, or control those activities, or bring them down to a degree acceptable level. But the sad part is that they did not happen. So they said that we are unhappy with this, and so they launched these airstrikes. Now, but the reality check to this whole issue is, I mean, having done all this, and the fact of the matter is that things did not go off well, and the Afghan retaliated. What is the reality check? The reality check is that despite all these events, both sides are keen to avoid an all out conflict. Pakistan knows very well that military means cannot succeed where mighty US led NATO military machine failed. It is also concerned about escalation because it knows that push comes to shove, the as rightly pointed out by other speakers, is that these guys are great guerrilla fighters. They have not been able to be dissuaded earlier on during the earlier operations launched by the Pakistani military. Now they're going to get be dissuaded now. So if they tend to mount attacks and they increase their activities inside Pakistan, the sufferer will be the Pakistani state. There is another element which is important to be noted, and that element is the fact that large number of night vision devices and long range weapon systems, particularly rifles with long ranges, have been provided to them through the Afghan Taliban or from the black market, and they are available to the TTP. So they are very well equipped to deal with this whole kind of situation, and the guerrilla tactics can intensify terrorism against Pakistan. There is another element is that there is a this thing is, as the Pakistani establishment goes on the back foot, and in any case, as you are well aware, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is a state which is not ruled by the center. It is like in an outlaw state within the Pakistani nation
Correct.
state, where they are running their own government, and particularly there is angus against the uh, mm, Pakistani National Army, PNA, Pakistani government led by Shehbaz Sharif. So the whole issue is becoming a very sort of intermixed with different priorities and different aspirations. Now, this whole there is a factor given that the Taliban is dependent. I mean, Afghan Taliban is dependent on Pakistan. True, all the trade comes from there. But if you notice recently, there is have been virtues being made to Iran, where the Afghan Taliban had bad relationship with Taliban with Iran. They are trying to build up relationship with the Afghanis and sorry, Iranians. And the aim of this whole issue is to use Char Bahar port as an alternative post. And as you know, Zanjaram Dalaram Road was built. We have a connectivity. The railway line is under consideration. So if the Herat gets linked to Char Bahar, the new route will be opened. So the things are not so all this is good for Afghanistan, I
Okay.
mean, sorry, Pakistan at this particular moment. There is yet another element, and that important part is that the extra regional perspective. Pakistan has tried to rope in the Tajiks to deal with this whole situation of anti-terror, and General Asim Malik, who's the current director of ISA, paid a visit over there and made the uh, the Tajik government to seek the CSTO intervention in resolution of this issue, this the quandary. But the interesting part is, as Dr. Kanta said, the Russians are not very keen to intervene through CSTO. They have made a direct intervention, and as a result, the other uh, Central Asian republics are also not keen to openly come out in support of Pakistan. But the concern all of them have is on the spread of Taliban, not only the spread of Taliban, but basically the Khorasan, ISI Khorasan group, which is present over there, and their relationship. So here there's an interesting aside that is taking place. Afghan Taliban is fighting with ISK Khorasan group in Tajikistan, and this as also with and also fighting with Islamic
Yes.
Uyghurs, IIUM, whatever we call it, Islamic Movement of Uyghurs, Uzbekistan, IMU. So they are fighting with them. So the question basically, this thing is that they are satisfying those needs of the Central Asian republics, allowing space, political space to the Russians, and in the bargain, also trying to neutralize the National Resistance Front, which is operating in these areas in northern Afghanistan and along the borders in Tajikistan. So I do not think that this kind of a movement, which is they are trying to push for creating a united front against Afghan national, is going to bear any fruit. Particularly in the fact is that Masood, who leads NRF, is hardly and was hounded by the Pakistanis, is trying to, he will anyway support the Pakistani contention. So Pakistan is in a desperate situation. It is suddenly finding itself. I don't look at it this whole issue of Afghan Pakistan issue alone, but there is a Balochistan issue where only yesterday we know you must have seen the large number of security forces people have been killed, and the Chinese are showing great concern about the fact is how Gwadar is becoming exposed to the BLS activities. Now, this brings me to the last question. Part of my presentation is Indian perspective. From Indian perspective, these developments suit us because it forces Pakistani military establishment to focus on western borders, betraying its notion of strategic depth. On the other hand, the Islamic militancy gaining ground under the rubric of AQIS, Al Qaeda Indian state, can spread in other parts of South Asia. This is becoming an important part, and like earlier said, that it could also, and it is, we have got reports that AQIS is spreading its wings in Bangladesh, where this issue can then get joined up with Bangladesh, and we can have a double pincer attack. So, what are the India's policy priorities? I look at them in three ways. First, despite recognizing the Afghan government, India must not recognizing the Afghan government must reach out and ensure that militants is not allowed to cross the border into India. Work with Russia and even China, as also NRF, to ensure AQIS appetite to spread terror is contained. We can also use the SCO for this particular activity and bring about a joint kind of a consolidated approach with the SCO and Russia and China on board to contain this whole element of militancy and more importantly spread of Islamic militancy in this region. Third issue is we need to have some kind of a technological overview of the whole situation. We need to have an ISR cover over this area. We need to monitor what is happening, and in this, we can also work with our American friends, if they agree, to keep a technical tag on the development so that we are forewarned and forearmed. I'll stop here. I'll look forward to questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you covered a lot of ground. New issues which you brought out was the Taliban and the TTP linkages with Baluch insurgency. The internal situation in Pakistan is interminably intertwined is what is happening in this region, and that Pakistan is on the back foot and it will remain on the back foot for a long time. You made a point in the end that it suits us. I agree with you 100%. Right. The interesting thing is both sides don't want an escalation, but both sides can't de-escalate either because there are too many emotions involved in this whole story. The two interesting points which I got from your thing, I'd like to highlight. You did say that the TTP is well equipped. It is to think, where did this equipment come from? This equipment is already 4 years old, and this is complicated equipment. It needs regular maintenance. It needs a maintenance backup, and that maintenance backup can only come from USA because it's all mostly US equipment. So it leads us to the point that somewhere or the other, the US is playing that marionette hand. It goes beyond my thinking that all such complicated equipment which the US left behind in Afghanistan can be put to good use by Afghans the way they are putting them good. That's the first part. The second part is the heroin trade in this region is completely dried out because Afghanistan has destroyed 98% of the poppy which is grown in Pakistan. And that also, I think, has had its own effect in this entire area. And you mentioned the issue of ISK, AQI, and Taliban, and ISI with its own thing. The latest news is LET people are loafing around there. Is all a major issue, and it concerns not only India, and I think it concerns China also. But that we'll take it up a little later. And your final thoughts and your views on the whole thing. We'll start with Brigadier Sahgal. Sir, all yours, please.
So I just want to highlight one simple fact is that suddenly this whole issue of Islamic militancy and rise of ISIS is gaining credence. The New Orleans event, the what is happening in Syria, the kind of resources that actions that are taking place, the role Iran will play in the future in 2025 and going forward. These are all elements of concern and which are not something which can be given any given direction at this point in time, but they are all erupting forces. Which manner will they take place is something which has to be decided or which will be given credence to as the events unfold. That's one issue. The second issue which I highlight is that Afghan Taliban is not totally averse to some kind of reconciliation with Pakistan. They have highlighted Mr. Sirajuddin Haqqani as their points person who's had meetings with them. And Siraju Haqqani was, if you recollect, was the points person with Hamid also when the 2021 and 2022 ceasefires took place. So they are keen. But on the line of Durand line and the fact of fencing and in trying to push across this large number of refugees back into Afghanistan has vitiated the atmosphere. And my last point is, economically speaking, Afghanistan is not a basket case. They are recovering. They're pushing forward their economy. Their tourism is also going up. There are signs of green shoots of development in Afghanistan, which we need to take cognizance of. Thank you.